Hello everyone, we welcome you all to this Week Tech Tuesday webinar on Create a Profile Warehouse with Cloud Data Profile Data. Today's speakers are Akram Sahbaz, who's a Senior Consultant, and Tracy Spindler, who's a Solution Architect from IPS team. Before we start the session, let's go through some of the housekeeping tips. The webinar is for 1 hour, that includes 15 minutes Q&A. You can post your queries in Q&A box, which will be answered at the end of the presentation. All participants will be muted during the presentation. The session will be recorded and it will be available on our InfoSupport YouTube channel and Success Portal where you can download the slide deck. Please feel free to submit your suggestion or feedback for this session in the post-webinar survey. The Success Portal is a micro-learning platform that offers free, unlimited learning to all the registered users. This feature-rich platform helps you learn and adopt to Informatica products better. The following are few important links that you can go over later. This will help you in your product adoption journey with Informatica. Over to you, Akram and Tracy. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. Thank you everyone for joining us in the Tech Tuesday webinar session. I am Akram Sahbaz and I'll cover today's topic, Cloud Data Profile Warehouse. What is data profiling? Data profiling is the process of assessing the quality and the structure of the data sources so that you have a complete 100% accurate picture of your data. Data profiling verifies that data columns are populated with the type of data you expect. If your profile reveals problem in the data, you can define steps in your data quality projects to fix those problems. Data profiling promotes good data governance. Informatica Cloud Data Profiling is one of the several services available in Informatica Intelligent Cloud Services. So today's agenda are: what is a profile warehouse? Why build a profile warehouse? Who could make use of profile warehouse? How it is built? Technical solutions, technical walkthrough, and aggregation and dashboards. So how it will be utilized. So we'll cover all these topics today. What is a cloud data profile warehouse? It is basically a collection of metadata regarding the profile runs in IDMC or cloud data profile. It will provide you with the necessary data about an org's profile runs to build custom dashboard for data quality trend analysis and overall data quality health monitoring through different dimensions like completeness, timeliness, validity, uniqueness, accuracy, and consistency. Why build a cloud data profile warehouse? It will provide you with an overall picture of the health of the data. And also, if you have a third-party vendor that provides you the data, it can help you track how complete or accurate their data is. And it can show the trend if the data is being cleaned up or not. It can help you send out your different reports for different business area to different stakeholders. It can also act as an audit tool. Once the cloud data profile house data is set up, you can backtrack all the issues that have been done, that have occurred previously. It will act as an audit tool in that case. The data will still the profiling data will still be saved in your infrastructure, and in the worst case, if you run out of space and needs to delete all profile within IICS CDP, you still have the data in your infrastructure. Who are the personas who can get benefited by cloud data profile warehouse solution? So there are different stakeholders that can use this cloud data profile warehouse solution for different purposes. We have it can be used by data owners, data stewards, data scientists, business analysts, technical IT folks, and at leadership level to get an overall picture or bird's eye view of what's happening with the data quality and data health. How is cloud data profile warehouse built? It is the whole solution is designed, executed, and built in CDI Cloud Data Integration Platform. So it is again a service available in IICS. So we have used a collection of APIs, REST APIs to extract data from Informatica Cloud Data Warehouse. So from there, using those APIs, we get the data out of Informatica's servers and get it into customers' infrastructure or your in their database. So the REST API responses that we're getting is written to the CSV files and then loaded into a reporting database. We call it CDP Warehouse of customers choosing. It can be Postgres, Snowflake, SQL, Oracle, anything. And on top of that data, we are creating BI reporting dashboards that will use these metrics uh, from the CDP warehouse data. About the design solution. So the whole design is, if you see, look at the whole design, right? It is orchestrated in 4 parts. The first part is, we have a series of CDI mappings that will call REST APIs that will pull data from Informatica cloud warehouse, right? Cloud data warehouse, and writes the data to CSV files. The second part would run another series of CDI mappings that would read these response files, CSV files, and load in the data into database tables. The third part is like we have a series of CDI mapping that aggregates the data from these database tables, all the responses that we've got from CDP. We are now going to aggregate those data and build some build some statistics out of that. The fourth is showcasing the results in a Power Database. On top of this aggregation data that we have created, we have to plug in Power BI dashboard or build Power BI dashboard to show the visualization of trends. So these are the list of APIs. I will explain each one of them. So these are the APIs that we have used for different purposes to extract data from your Informatica Cloud Data Warehouse, Cloud Profile Data Warehouse. So the first one, if you see over here, is and all these APIs are to be called in a sequence because the response from the previous API is used in the next API. So it has to be called in a sequence which is mentioned. So if you see over here, like the first thing that we do is we do the login, then we do the profile listing. So we have API for profile listing, and then we have profile execution stat. So to get the profile run informations, we have this API. Then we have API for profile metadata, column profiling details, top frequent values, column pattern values, all profile runs, and additional information about your profile and your rule metadata. So most of the APIs you can find in our docs.informatica.com, but there are few which are custom and not available at docs.informatica.com. So let me give a walkthrough of Cloud Data Profile Warehouse. So currently, right, we have the profile in Informatica. A Cloud Data Profile looks like this. So if we have created a profile in ISCS in CDP services, it will look like this. So here is an example where I have created a profile. I'm showing a profile for a table which is all customer data. So if you see over here, you can see all the columns have been profiled at column level. Profile has been done at the column level, and we have all the column level statistics which are shown over here. We have your null percentage, null count, distinct percent, distinct count, patterns, minimum value, maximum value. Then at the right hand side, we have the different sort of trends available. We have data type out of this, data profiling. We have types of pattern for each column is available. So this is the data which is currently available in your cloud data profile. So our API, using those APIs, what we are doing is we are extracting this information from Informatica servers to the customer's infrastructure and customer tables, so that they can build custom dashboard or custom visualization out of this data. So if you see over it, so this is transitioning from this deck. So I was showing you this deck, right, where we have the cloud data profile. And if I take you to the actual URL and services, right? It looks like this. So we have a profile which has been run. It shows that it has run 2 times and how many columns have been profiled, how many rules it have, how many rows it processed, when it was ran, and it will show you all the data. So at this profiling has been done at a column level. So each column, right, we are looking at the last name column. So for each column level, we are getting some sort of frequency. This is the frequency. This is the pattern for this particular column. We have your data info data type, documented data type, and all this thing, and the type of rules which have been applied to that. Like for example, we have rules applied on customer tier, and it will have its own data, right? Okay. So coming back to the deck. Our focus was to get extract all this information from Informatica Cloud Data Profiles warehouse to customers database. So to do that, we have used a series of API that I've shown earlier in a specific sequence, so that we get all this data out of the Informatica Cloud Data Profile warehouse and build the data in customer data, build this warehouse in a customer database, and so the customer can perform different sort of aggregations on this data and build a trend analysis or health monitoring dashboard for themselves. So the next is I'll walk through the first API that we have, which is your login. So to do this login, right? So we have an API that does this login, and the very first essential so to get this executed, right, we have to pass some value. So we have to pass the username password. So you should have a username account created, which will have access across multiple folders, ha- have access multiple folders, so that it can scan and brings out so that it can log into all the servers. So this mapping is used to call the IDMC Login API, and from its response, the response of it captures the IC session ID. So IC session ID is used to log in, is used to as an authentication to authenticate all the subsequent API that will be calling. So this is the very first step that we do. We have to log into the IDMC and get the session ID and use the session ID in all the subsequent API calls as the authentication method. This session ID, if gets timed out if the session is idle for about 30 minutes. And to generate the session ID, we have to pass your username and password. And this username and password you have to keep in mind to this username and password should have access across all the folders, so that with this credential you will be able to extract data from all the profile across different projects. So the next API is the profile listing. So this is the mapping used to call the IDMC profile list API, and the response contains the profile IDs created in the IDMC org. So all the profiles that are created or present in your org will get listed out through this profile list API. And for this one, we don't need any input. It's just we have a URL that you hit, and you pass on the session ID to authenticate the call, and it will give you all the profile that I've created so far in the org, and with their names. So that is why it is very important to have a username and password created that will have access across different projects. The next is your execution stats. This mapping is used to call the IDMC profile execution stats API, and the response contains the profile latest execution status present in job in GLS IDMC org. The input to this API is your org ID and profile name. So what we have to basically do is to know what is the job status, right? Execution. So if you have triggered a profile and it has failed, right? So with this API, we need to understand, okay, which profile has completed successfully, which profile has failed, and for what reason. And it will also show if the profile is running. When we execute the process, it will show when the profile is run. So this API gives all this current execution status. Then the fourth one is your profile metadata detail. This mapping is basically used to call the IDMC profile metadata API, and the response contains the metadata of each profile ID. uh, ID. Uh, the metadata details are like profilable fields, rule tag, sampling option, filter option, who created it, what is the profile name, in which org it is created, what is the last run key, if the filter is enabled or not, if the filter option. So all this metadata information, right, about the profile is being is what we get as a response when we call this API. And to do so, we have to pass profile ID. Like from the previous profile listing, right? We have an API which we from where we get the profile IDs. So we use that as an input, and your session ID obviously to authenticate the whole process. We get all the metadata about the profile. The next API that we call is your profile. So it is another API that will give us additional information about the additional metadata information about the profile. Additional metadata in the sense like your profile project folder name, tags, if you have tags that are assigned to it. If you have if you have yeah, that's the thing, right? We have additional information about the uh, project name and tags if you have assigned to the particular profile. So these this is a separate API where we call in to get this information. And to do so, we need the FRS ID. FRS is a federated repository system, FRS ID. So we have to pass the FRS ID to get all this metadata information about the project and about the tags of the profile. Similarly, we have additional we have a API that will call in the rule additional metadata. So here what we get is we get your metadata about the profile, about the rule project. It's where it is created, folder name, rule dimensions. So if you have created a rule and you have assigned a dimension, right, and you have used that rule in the profile, we get all the metadata information about those, like where it is created, which folder is created, uh, like uh, what is the dimension set to it. Yeah, is it is it exception is enabled or not? If inside inside tool, is it an inside tool or not? So all those information, if it's what type of tag, uh, what are the tag names? All those metadata information will get from here, from the particular API. So this will have to get this information, we have to pass the FRS ID for the rule. Now the next API is your column profiling details. So as we've seen earlier, right, in the Informatica clouded profiling page, that how our profile looks like. So we have seen all sort of statistics that we have, like null count, null percent, blank count, maximum length, minimum length, pattern, all those things, right? So these APIs will help us to get that information. So to do so, right, we have to pass the profile ID and run key. Okay. So run key and last run key is a concept that we understand. So in terms of metadata, whenever we look at a metadata, it is associated with the last run key. So last run key is a sequence number that denotes the number of times the profile has ran. So if a last run key, for example, if a last run key is like last run key is 2, it means the profile has run 2 times so far. Last one key is 1, it means the profile has run 1 time. And this last one key gets only generated if the profile has completed successfully. If the profile has started for the very first time, if the profile has ran for the very first time and it fell in between, the profile run key will profile last run key will not get generated. So that run key will denote which run it is, right? So to get in column profiling API, we have to pass. We are trying to get the information about the column level stats for all the columns for each profile ID for each run. So if a profile has run for 2 times, So we will get all the column level statistic for both the runs, for the first run and the second run. Top frequent value. So this mapping, basically calls the top frequent values API, and the response contains top 20 most frequent value for each column at column level. For each column, what is the top most frequent values for each profile run for each profile ID for each run. So here we for each profile, each column, and each run we get 20 values, top most frequent values. So here we have to pass the inputs like what is the column, what is the profile ID, what is the column ID, and what is the run that we want to get the data for. So so it gives you the data at this level. Next is your column pattern data. So we have already seen that with the data, the CDP, we see a different sort of when you look at the specific column, we see a different type of pattern that the data can be represented, right? So here we with this API, we get a response that contains top 20 column pattern data for each column level, for each column, for each profile ID, and for each run. So if you see over here, so it saves like in that column we have a column name like a pattern level. So it says what type of data this particular column is holding, and how many how many records will satisfy to this count, to this inferred to this inferred pattern, and how many records the record percentage. The next API is your all profile runs. So what will happen, right? So this is very interesting API that gives your that contains the response contains the existence stat for each profile ID for all the successful runs. So suppose if a profile has run for 2 times, when you pass the profile ID, it will give information about those two both the runs. If those are successful, they will say will give me return this run statistic for all those 2 runs for that particular profile, and it gives like job execution execution status, start time, end time, then how many rows have processed, how many columns were profiled, a number of rules have profiled in that particular run, and cost may be like to store the the profile data for this particular run, how much memory it will cost. All this information this particular API captures. So we have to pass the profile ID in this case. So we have to pass the profile ID along with the column ID and run key. Okay. The next is your reporting data aggregated dashboard, right? The other thread, right? This is the part 3. So we already till this point we have already called this mapping. So all these APIs have been called, and the response have been downloaded in a CSV file. And then we have another set of mapping that will load this response to a database. Now, once those are done, what business does is business creates uh, a business tries to aggregate business and perform tries to aggregate uh, data based on different dimensions, and then use those for visualization. So if you see over here, right, that the business have took all the data we have downloaded so far, and performed the aggregation based on the dimensions. Then there is assigned that is those profile patterns in terms of the rules, because in rules we have option to assign dimensions. So they based on those dimensions that are being used in those rules, they try to create this final aggregation on which they will try to build the visualization. So here, if you see, right, we can see a lot of dimensions. So just wanted to give you an overview of those. So we can see here we have accuracy. So accuracy is like trying to see if the data is accurate when it matches a known data fact that the asset can verify. For example, a business rule may require that each employee in an organization has the correct data security clearance for their role. The organization maintains a set of personal records that includes security clearance job and the job title for each employee. So you can configure an asset to compare the security clearance of data to the job title in each record to verify that the value matches accurately. So yeah, so this is how business have created different accuracy rules in here to and tag and added the dimensional accuracy for them. We do have validity, uniqueness, timeliness, completeness, and then we have overall DQ score. So overall DQ score, in here, right, the overall DQ score is the aggregate of the dimension score calculated to get the average dimension score for all the runs on each table. So if you see, right, they have done it all this aggregation on a particular source, particular domain, particular table for all the runs. Okay. Uh, for I guess for each run they have done that. For each run they have done this aggregation. Now this is a dashboard. This is the dashboard that will come out there built on top of that aggregated table, which will show the trend like how for each source and for on over the period of time how the trend is moving for different dimensions. This is the overview, and then we have this operational view where we can do more sort of drill down in terms of source, types of table, and and duration over which the data quality checks have been performed. So this is the final output that we have. That the customer can have different visual needs, so that they can use this data to create one. So they can create different logics that can run on they can consume the data that we extract from the profile data warehouse and can build different aggregate tables and then build the profile warehouse accordingly. So finally, thank you for partaking in this Tech Tuesday. Do you have any questions?
Hi all, we have reached the Q&A part. Please post your questions.
So hi everyone. So there is a question. Does it is asking like, does it store all the actual data and profiling data stats in cloud data profile warehouse? No, it does not store the actual data. It just pull all the stats from profile warehouse from Informatica.
Akram, there's a question about why to use APIs in IDMC rather than using it within the tool.
So this is basically, it's all depend upon customer need when they want the profile data outside Informatica, so they can build custom dashboards like the one we have showed just now. So they can have their own data health monitoring system and trend analysis system. So there is another question like, will the whole profile warehouse solution gets executed if there are no new profile information present in IDMC org? No, it will not. The way we have created the whole solution is that it will check every time, whether we have new profiles available in the system in Informatica, and if there are new profiles, then only it will pick up those profiles and process and capture the stats for them. There is another question: Do we have it to use API tools like REST to use these APIs, or are they within the tool? So these are within the tool. In Informatica, we have option to use CDI, CAI to make REST API calls, and through those tools inside IDMC, we can perform all these API calls. Okay. So there's another question like, couldn't understand the profile run aggregate use case. So in this use case, right? So in this particular example, the business has a requirement that they want they have a lot of profiles, and to that they have applied a lot of rules to identify the data anomalies. And now, based on the dimensions of each of the profiles, they want to see how much of my data is in good health, in sense of like how much of my data have completeness percentage, completeness, timeliness, consistency percentage. So to do so, they have created a set of mappings that will aggregate, that will run on top of the data that we have fetched out from Informatica, all the profile warehouse. They will then, on top of the data, they will perform aggregations using different logics to aggregate the total dimensions, per profile, and then use it in the trend analysis. So the other question, like, how can leadership view the data? Is it a final dashboard? So for them, right, the leadership can view this dashboard as they'll have an overall idea, like over the period of time, over the period of 6 months for the particular domain and source system, how much of my data is, has a completeness issue or having, consistency or duplicate issue. So that will give them an idea where to look at. And that will also help the, the source team. This can also be built with the source team who can check their data and fix those issues. Okay, so there's another question. Where would I see the audit history in the tool? So can you please explain what do you mean the audit history in the tool? Is it about the profile warehouse runs, or is it about, how many profiles we have fetched in? Okay, so if it's about about the different profiles, for the data detection, we do have an internal job, CDI mapping that will capture the last one key of each of the profiles that we are processing, so that we did not process the same profile in our warehouse solution every time. Okay, did not see a slide for rule additional metadata API. Can we tell us how we can use that API? I guess we do have. So we do have a rule additional metadata API. So this will basically gives you the information about all your rule information. Like if you assign a tag to your rule, it will give you the assignment tag information. It also tells you about the dimension. The profile, the rule has some dimension tag to it, or whether this profile is suggested through an insight process. We do generate the process to interact. It will be updated over here. So we have a column over here that will give you your dimension, your insight, whether it has an insight or not, and which project, what is the tag, who created it, what is the business logic for the rule. All this information will be there in this rule metadata information. So there's another question coming now is like, okay. Does the IDMC login, which is your IC session ID, gets timed out? Yes, in IDMC, the session idle time controls the amount of time before user session times out due to any inactivity. So if the whole process is running, and it will be active, but if the process is idle for more than 30 minutes, the session will get timed out. So you have to do the login process again and start the process. But when the solution runs, and since the solution will run end to end, and even if it takes more than 30 minutes, it's not timed out because it is not idle. Only in the case where if the job has failed, so we do have a recovery step, as a part of the we have as a part of the whole package, right? Solution. There is a recovery step in case that we get a session timeout. In case the job fails and the process is idle for more than 30 minutes, obviously the session will get timed out. In that case, we have a step-by-step process or recovery process for that. So Tracy, there is a question, like one of the texts says, it can act as an audit tool. Need details on what level audit info can be seen?
So a lot of the same stuff that you can see within CDP, you can expose that in reports that maybe your leadership wants to see, or somebody that might not have access to CDGC or not CDGC, IDMC. So for example, the completeness, timeliness, some of those different dimensions that you that we explained in the beginning, you can have that in some of your leadership dashboards or other dashboards that you could create that maybe would give a little bit more information specific to your requirements.
Okay, so there's another question. With CDGC, we already have a dashboard. Why create a custom dashboard report? I believe with CDGC, we have your scorecard. And when you look at a scorecard, it will give you that dashboard information, but for a particular table, right? On a particular table, you assign a rule, and that rule has a tag to it, and based on those tags, you will get the dashboard reporting. But here, what will happen is you process it. Here for a particular source system, you can have different tables inside that, right? And you apply different set of rules inside them. So you can have a broader, reporting facility if you use this custom reporting. Like you can have this reporting based on one source system on different tables and different rules applied on top of it. It will not be based on a one table, one rule at a time. So you'll have the option to have include a lot of tables and different rules in the dashboard. Can this profiling information be integrated to Exam etc.? I believe yes, but I have to look into that. I believe it will be. We can have you can utilize this data, but we haven't tried it. But we can definitely look into this.
And I think, Akram, if you, because this data is being housed in database tables, you can scan these database tables and bring them into Axon and EDC that way. But to do it from IDMC to Axon directly won't work. You would have to scan in the tables that house this data.
Okay. Thank you, Tracy, for getting this. Okay, so there's another question. Why do we have to call the profiling APIs in a specified sequence? Okay, so we as shown, right? We have a list of 10 API that we're calling in a sequence. So the response from the previous API will be an input to the next API, and that is why we have to call this in a sequence. And the throughput is very fast. We have tried this right with tons of profile, and throughput very fast with this API calls, even if the API calls.
Are there any more questions? I think we've answered all of them. So there's another question that just popped up. How about integrating it to Axon through Axon IDQ agent? I don't know the answer to that. Again, it would have to be something where you would have to, scan in those database tables that this data is now housed in. You can't go directly from a REST API, the cloud version to Axon IDQ. Somebody just said Axon only has one Axon agent. I'm not an Axon expert, so thank you for answering that. Another question, scanning can be done through EDC. What about Axon? Again, I'm not sure, a lot of it is, taking these database tables that we've just created and landed this data in. What you do from that after it gets there, you definitely can bring it into EDC, but I'm not sure, how Axon can bring it in. I would imagine it's just another catalog within Axon, so I think that can happen that way. Somebody stated, so if you have a hybrid deployment of on-prem and AWS, you can always integrate one of them natively with the Axon agent. So thank you.
And just to right, this solution is very, ready to use. We have a set of mappings, we have a set of SQLs and a parameter file. It's like plug and play. You put it in an environment, the table structure is defined, and it is ready to go. It's quick to utilize and quick to, you can get it up and running within days and start using it.
So last question, can we integrate the CDQ with on-prem Axon and EDC? I don't know the answer to that. We're cloud experts in IDMC, but again, knowledge base might have information on this. Akram, do you know the answer to this?
I'm not sure on this part, Tracy, because again, my main focus is on CDK, CDI, right, and Axon. I'm not sure totally, but we can check on this and we can get back, on these questions related to this particular integration. But as per the KBI article that I've just found, right, said that CDQ cannot be integrated with on-prem Axon. On-prem Axon can only be created with the following products: IDQ, BDQ, and DEQ. So yeah, it's not compatible.
I just got another one. Does this framework cost apart from usage? No. So all of the usage from an IPU perspective, if that's what you're referring to, would be just the IPUs that are used when the CDI mappings run. And these don't take a long time to run, depending on the number of profiles that it has to read in, anywhere from maybe 5 to 15 minutes, again, depending on how often you run them. So it would just be the amount of hours that it takes to run your CDI mappings.
We don't see the questions coming in. We will end the webinar. Thank you, Tracy and Akram, for today's webinar. We kindly request audience to take up survey and give us feedback once this webcast ends. Today's webinar will be available tomorrow on Success Portal under the Resources tab. Thank you all for attending.